welcome back to Design Deconstructed. My name is Matthew Medina. I am Advanced Narrative Designer at ArenaNet, and we're at episode 19, where we're going to take another look at the next few chapters of Secrets of the Obscure, which was our fourth expansion that came out in 2023? Yeah, something like that. It's been a while. I apologize for taking an extended hiatus off of this series. Right after I filmed the last episode, I was approached to teach at DigiPen for a semester, which I really enjoyed. But that took all of my extra time because I don't know, grading and creating assignments for a student cohort of 29 was more than I expected. So I didn't have the time to devote to some of my other interests outside of work. And so this has been a while coming, so I appreciate your patience if you've been waiting. So we're going to start taking a look at Chapter 3, which is where we left off from last time. And Chapter 3 is primarily open world, and it did involve some amount of mastery earning. So I skipped over that for you because I don't want to talk about stuff that is just basically filling an experience bar. So I already have the mastery. So we're just going to play through this, which is one of the first things I can actually talk about, because one of the challenges of developing open world story content is you have to build it not quite twice, but in a lot of ways, there's a lot of things you have to do uh, in sequence, uh, both for when you don't have the mastery and for when you do have the mastery. And our system is fairly smart. It doesn't really care whether or not you have the mastery, but scripting does. So the scripting system that we used for like NPCs, like here's Mabon walking around in the open world. So, we have to account for things like that when we're talking about whether or not you have met Mabon, or whether you've moved forward in certain ways matters, because he's a part of the meta event which takes place temporally in a different time period than the story does. So those are the sorts of things you have to count for when you're dealing with open world story in an MMO. Is there's a lot of variables at play based on where you are, versus where the map is, versus where other players might be. This is also a fun little thing to talk about before I go in. I was able to do something that I did the first prototypes of this in End of Dragons, but I really kind of notched it up a little bit more for this expansion, which is this command center is, in essence, it's an open world instance, which we've never really been able to do, but I wanted to try doing it. So basically what it is when you go in here, and the reason why the doors are sort of like the gate that you have to walk through, and you can't just open the doors and enter, is because we're doing a lot of things to you as a player when you enter. So when you click to bring yourself inside, this is still the open world. There are other players in here, but you can't see any of them. The reason being is that we have some technology that we've pioneered over the last few years to basically create what we call visibility channels. I think I've talked about those here before. So one of the interesting quirks, I guess you could say, or unintended benefits of using visibility channels for the NPCs so that you can see them or not see them based on your quest progress. If I put players on that same visibility channel, it does actually treat you like an NPC in a sense, to where you no longer can see players that are not part of that same channel. So it's a fun little trick that we can pull off where even though this is technically all open world and there are other players potentially running around inside here, um, you know, your party might actually be in here with you, but you wouldn't be able to see them. And the reason we do that for the most part is because if you've played story at all in our game in the open world, you've probably experienced this effect where there's 25 NPC or there's 25 players mobbing this NPC, right? And you can't even see the NPC because there's a guy on his turtle mount and there's another person with, you know, blindingly glaring visual effects off their character, and so it creates a situation where you can't follow the story correctly, or as optimally as we want you to be able to follow the story. So this allows us to have a bunch of players all able to interact with this NPC and this group, and have these dialogues, but it doesn't actually show up for you. So you can actually just enjoy your story, and play with these characters and see them as we intended them to be seen, like you would in an instance, but without the overhead cost of creating an instance and having to test the holding map. So it's a win for us. I really love that we have done this. I look for opportunities to do this whenever I can now that we have figured out this technology. And then, it allows us to do some other things too. Like, for example, I can hide your skill bar in here. And the reason that we do that is because if you could use your skills in here, that would be a giveaway, that there are other players in here, because you'd see effects, you'd see pyrotechnics going off over here in the corner if an elementalist is laying down meteor shower or whatever. I can't hide that stuff. I can't hide what a player does. I can only hide the player's model. And so that was a trade-off. But it also, again, this helps you kind of focus in on this moment with these NPCs. So that was kind of a nice thing. And then there's all kinds of neat little interactables that we can put in here, and optional conversations, dialogues you can have with NPCs. Um, you kind of saw a little glimpse of a player coming in, or leaving, just there. Yeah, so that's kind of a fun thing. I really enjoy
I do
this.
not miss the ever-changing nature of technology. There. I've attuned your little device to pick up on arcane fluctuations. We'll be able to contact you anywhere, even if you stumble into another rift.
Well, let's hope the latter doesn't happen anytime soon.
Yes, let's.
There are still some limitations with this system. For example, these NPCs need to stay still, because they have to be in the same, just like in an open world step, they have to be in a predictable place for every player and not just you. Whereas if they moved around, it would create confusion, and make it harder for you to locate these NPCs. So I also want to give a quick shout out to two of my favorite characters from this expansion, Urchik and Gladium. Um, Gladium and Urchik are two of the characters that I really, uh, you know, it is a team effort. We do all contribute to making these characters and making this expansion. But these two characters, I think more than any other, were probably the ones that I pushed pretty hard to get and to define. I wanted Gladium to be, this kind of cool, calm assassin that doesn't speak, because I'm a huge fan of G.I. Joe growing up, still am, to some degree, and Snake Eyes was always my favorite character, so I wanted her to kind of fill that role. And Urchik is just adorable and cute, and I love talking to Urchik every chance I get. Um, Urchik is voiced by Julie Nathanson, who is a voice performer that we love working with. Um, is a fun character as well. She's sort of our crabby, grandmotherly, you know,
I was an esteemed professor in the College of Synergetics.
Wizard.
To study the
She's, well, I
metaphysical
don't know.
is to study
She's
the
not
inner
technically a
workings of the
wizard. She's
flow
part of the
itself.
Astral Ward, though.
It's good work. But my people are stubborn and petty. Bureaucratic, even. It's limiting. Zojia and I had the same realization. Expecting satisfaction from that city is like expecting a script to win the SNAP prize. So I went on a long
You
sabbatical.
know, we throw these,
Exploring all the
sometimes we throw
long,
these
stuffy labs and debate
jokes
halls of
about
the
Scred
Lost
around,
City.
and I often wonder what
And
does
then
Urchik
they
think about
found
that
this big lump
is
of bricks hiding away in
now that we have been
A
leaning
bog
more
noticed
into
my curiosity,
NPCs that are Scrit. Like,
and
I think we may have to
well,
tone back some of that. Yeah,
they
because it
offered a
is,
stipend from
I don't
local
know if it's
incomes.
racist, but it definitely
They think I'm
is
in a jungle
kind of demeaning
somewhere,
that we
gawking at
talk about Scrit
plants.
so
Bureaucrats.
casually, like they're all idiots and useless.
Welcome to the command center.
All right, so now we go out to Rion. And again, this is the character that we established who would sort of teach players about the
Ah,
mastery,
Commander. Your eyes have seen so many places, so many beasts. I
voiced
know
by
a hunter
Yuri
to exceed.
Lowenthal.
Apologies.
We've
Being in
used
your
Yuri
presence
quite a
may be
bit.
more
He is the
shocking to
voice of
some
Lord
minds.
Farron,
I'm
as
Leon
most
of
noticeably.
Retribution.
Croden
But
units reporting.
he's
It sounds
he's
like we're
probably a
moving to the
recognizable
spot.
voice if you've played video
Well,
games in the
your
last five,
outcomes
ten
have guided
years.
timely.
He's
Rifts have been appearing all over town,
Spider-Man
but
in
they're
the
especially
Sony
brutal.
Spider-Man games.
Thankfully, that device of
He's
yours,
he's an
the
amazingly
Hardened
talented
Steel, has given us
actor
a new
who can do pretty
windfall.
much anything. And
In your hands,
he and I
a blessing.
have,
They found it in Waiting Sorrow's
you
quarters
know,
just before we
the
lost the tower.
distinction of he's
No
been with us from
notice
the
made
start,
before, but the
just
heart's
like me.
ability to open
So
and seal rifts by
I
finding
wouldn't call him
weapons
a
and
friend. We
fuels
don't
is
have a
impressive.
relationship outside of a
I have
professional
not much
working,
more time
but
with the
you know,
Hardened
I've sat in
Steel,
the
but
booth with
let me
him,
guide you.
listening to him
The
record
heart of the
for
obscure is
I don't know
capable
how
of
many years.
astonishing
So I
things.
feel like I
It
do
can
know
act
him
as
on
a
some level.
conduit for your emotional energy,
It's just fun.
channeling it as a source of power. Now, hold the heart aloft and focus your thoughts on the demonic rifts and your desire to hunt down these intruders.
And let's see. So yes, I already learned the mastery, so I don't have to worry about it. Do I have this set up correctly? No, that's the doorway. That's the homestead one. Scan for
Do you
rift.
feel it?
I can. I can see it. The magic in the air is flowing.
What does it look like?
Hard to describe. A little frightening. Like the world itself is reaching toward something. You can't see it?
I didn't stay for that dialogue.
The villages!
That was one of the trickier things to set up actually on this whole open world step was getting these dialogues to play because it's a tutorial. You don't want it to play more than once, right? And our system, one of the interesting things about dialogues is it's hard to just play things once. Um, so we have to do some trickery, and we set some progress bits to say that you listened to it, so that it doesn't keep playing. All right. So yeah, this was, this whole step is all about learning this new feature for this expansion, which was the Rift system. Um, so there was a lot to this Rift system, so we wanted to make sure that players knew what to do, how to do it, um, and it was built as a content on demand system, right? So anytime you use this, it's going to flag an event map wide um, that you will have to then traverse to in order to participate, which is a new thing because normally you just have to kind of, you know, make your way around the map until you come across events. And this is the first time, I think we've had something that is player triggered that really specifically guides you to an event from wherever you are. And I was not part of the team that built this system, but I worked closely with them, like I said, to make sure that I understood it and contextualize the narrative and the VO dialogues for how these things get exposed and taught to the player, because it's very easy to miss that stuff or to tell you the wrong thing to do. So there's the rift. Looks like somebody's already doing it, which is always fun. It's one of the nice things about this sort of a content system is that it obviously gets you playing with other players, which is also a big part of Guild Wars 2. So it's nice to see there are still players who are doing rifts on a regular basis. That was definitely the intention of the system, was for it to be used and to be rewarding enough that you continue to do it. So it's nice to see that, almost 2 years after this expansion came out, God, has it been that long? There are still players running through these maps, doing cool stuff. I will also say this is not specific to story, but one of the biggest challenges that we faced, honestly, with this Rift tracking system was getting the player to hold the Heart of the Obscure through all the different states you could be in when you bring it out, right? You could be mounted, you could be not mounted, you could be in the middle of an emote, doing all kinds of things. Yeah, there were some interesting challenges to getting that to look right. For the longest time, it would use your weapon instead of the Heart of the Obscure model, which wasn't awful, but depending on the weapon, it kind of looked kind of silly. It was definitely a bug, so we fixed it and made sure that it now holds the correct model. Oh my gosh, I have not played this character probably since the last time I filmed one of these. Do nothing. Get the bunnies out. One thing I definitely need to do in the near future is try out the spear on my Mesmer, because I've heard very good things about it. Alright. Shouldn't even need to close one more rift. I should just need to get the next event done. Oh my gosh. I'm not even good at flying my sky scale today. There we go. Yeah, you can tell this character has not been to these maps before, too. I'm getting all of the map complete.
Feel the fury. I feel good. Time to do some real damage.
Hmm. I apparently didn't do enough damage. That's how bad I am with this build. I didn't get credit. Alright.
Feel the fury. Time to do some real damage. Replenishing.
One of the greatest challenges that I have,
I gather that
um,
rift hunting
I
is
mean, I
one
think all of
reason
us
for
that work on story for Guild Wars 2, right, is
these fractals.
we want to
Born
have
of one
story
reality,
be really
born
tied
into
closely
another,
with the open
hunted by
world,
humans.
because it is primarily an
Another
MMO,
thing that we'll
and
need to handle.
there's a lot of content in the open world that we don't want players to miss, that we want
We've
to
got a
direct
moment.
players to
Please report
as
back to
part
the
of the
medical
story.
ward at the Beacon of Ages.
Um, and so, we
If a
do
little
things like
exposure to
this
Gaius, I'd
at
like to
times
confirm
where
that you're
you
in
are
optimal
asked to
health.
basically fill a bar um, by doing events. In this case, it's also to help you learn a new system, a new feature, which is better, I think, if you include it as part of the story and don't just ignore it, because then, that's worse. But it's a balancing act between how
If you're
far
so
you
concerned,
go
why did you rescue me?
um, to put that stuff in front of players, because it can be seen as filler content, tedium. I personally don't think so, because
You're
again,
making
to
a
me,
great
that's
case
just
for yourself.
we're exploring the world together, which is what our game excels at, in my view. So we do try to push you out there, and let you play with players, and say, hey, it's okay to take story and put it to the side just for a little bit, and we'll come back to it when it's ready. But I know some people are like, they're chomping at the bit. They just want to move to the next story step, and maybe sometimes get frustrated that we don't always put it right in your face as the next thing to do. Um, Hopefully, it's understandable why we do the way that we do, and that it's not too unbearable. We're very aware. We can't always just, you know, um, we don't want it to be. We don't want it to be tedious. Obviously, that's never the intent of anything that we do. We want you to be having fun, and we think that this is fun because we enjoy it. We enjoy seeing what our fellow content designers have built, and we enjoy putting those events and those storylines in front of you as well. They are for what we don't have an official side quest
So you
system in
are
our game,
inside.
and so open world content is, in a lot of ways, that's what we do um, to feed you side content, right? Oops, I went to the wrong door. I think I'd know this stuff by now. I did, I talked earlier about making an instance version of this. I actually had done the same thing in here that I had done downstairs, where this was an open world instance as well. And we had a number of issues with that up here.
I'm no good to anyone
So I ended up opening the doors and creating an instance out of this instead.
If you
Um,
re-injure that leg right
yeah. So this instance is one that we built to talk about uh, the character of Patha a little bit more in depth, to get into her as a character, to get some understanding of what she was about, and the potential threat that she represents. Because she's been talking to us in our head since we left Nios, and we don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. And so we wanted to have a moment where you check in with the medics here, who are
Nino told me you were
going to
coming.
tell us a little bit more
Sick.
about what's
Quickly,
going on.
please.
And then this stool, this simple stool, this right here, this is the reason why this ended up being an instance. Because I wanted this stool served two purposes. Number one is it's just a cool thing to do, to like, hey, if you're going to get checked out at the doctor, you always sit down, right? Like they make you sit down to be examined, or lay down, right? So I wanted something like that. I didn't want to use the beds, because I didn't want the player to feel like they're, like these folks who are, really hurting. They're actually wounded. We're not wounded. We're just hearing a voice in our head. So I wanted a seat, and the second reason that this is here is because it's actually a reward. If you When you sit in it, it unlocks this skin for you as a chair, so you can use this to sit in anytime you want. Um, the problem with that is, if I do this in the open world, everybody's going to sit in the same stool, and then they'll have to form a queue, right? Of like, all right, I'm next, right? Like you'd have to form a line to see the doctor, and I really didn't want players to be put in that position. Like even if you can't see them, you just wouldn't be able to use the stool when somebody else was in it. So I didn't have a way to instance this off in a way that felt satisfying. So that's why I ended up putting it back into its own instance, so that you are here by yourself or with your party members, um, and then you get to sit in the stool.
Vital signs. Mostly normal. Do you feel anything strange? Sharp pains in your feet? Any nausea? Distant memories surfacing?
Nothing like that.
Need you to be honest if we want a proper bill of health, Commander.
Maybe I've been hearing a whisper since I got back from the demon realm, Nios.
Not surprising. Here, let's check on your astral alignment. Influenced, perhaps. But I can confirm that you aren't possessed. Your will is intact. We can work with that. Hearing voices after traveling through the mists isn't entirely uncommon. So long as it's not telling you to murder anybody, and you're not acting on those impulses, I see no threat.
That would make things exciting, wouldn't it?
I'll let you know if that changes.
I don't remember if I brought this up in the last episode, but it was really fun. We actually got the ability to. I don't. Now my memory's not serving me. I can't remember if we got this ability to have NPCs talk to you and have it appear as a whisper. But that was a key component for us narratively to sell that, you were alone were hearing this voice in your head, because it's literally what you see when another player whispers at you. You get the pink purple text, magenta color, right? Otherwise, it's like this light gray color. So it was a nice little nod to the fact that, Patha is whispering in your ear, and you can hear her, and so her voice shows up in the chat log, but there's no other people who can hear you. And so that was a nice little thing. I also love that, it's cool for us to disguise her voice until she gives us her name, which is just the strange voice that we hear from Nios.
Nice work out there. sky scales are invaluable for navigating the fractured landscape, but there's even more they can do. Speak with Skyscale trainer Diane at the Beacon of Ages if you want to learn everything there is to know about Skyscales.
Do you have some order?
Yep. And so we now have a story step that has you going in and learning about the sky scales. This is the expansion where players are encouraged to get a sky scale because it is a game changer when it comes to the mount system that we have. And there's a whole new acquisition path for it, and it's easier. It's still not easy to earn. You still have to put in a lot of work and time, but it's I think it's by far it's easier than the one that was released with when the sky scale was originally put out.
Oh, hey.
I also
This
was
place
able to,
is
again, with this
impressive.
thankfully open world
If not a
instance, I
little
was able to put
terrifying.
Zoja in here for a
The
little
wizards
quick
can create
check-in.
fractals. Still trying to wrap my head around it.
Yeah, it can be a lot. We're still getting used to all of this ourselves.
This one is a little prickly. But I
It was
can
nice to
tell
be able to
it
get
was
back
for
in
me.
and spend a little more time with Zoja
She's
because she's a character that we haven't seen in quite some time. And
much about
we knew we were getting her for this expansion. We had no ideas about whether or not she would continue with us because
Did you say
there's
something, Jaden?
oh,
negotiations with the
you
actor.
tell
Felicia Day does a great
friend.
job. But she's
She's
a busy
beginning
woman.
to
She's got a lot going on. She's
my
it's not as easy to get hold of and to get on the books for
Nothing
us.
from me.
So we
I'll
just
leave it to
wanted to
your
make
work.
sure that hey, we spend as much time as possible with her in this expansion, and then we'll come back to her in the future if it's if it makes sense. All right, and now I've got a little bit of a personal. This is, one of the nice things about working on content is you get to kind of put in little nods, personal nods. And so this is my wife. um, I don't know. I don't talk much about my personal life on social media, so
Are you ready for
I
the
don't know how
main
many people
charge, my
know,
friend?
but
Until I'm
in
rejoined,
2021,
I don't really think I'm going to be able to
I
control
met
the
this
Forge
woman,
weapons
Diane,
much.
and she and I got
I'm
together.
afraid we're running
We've
out of
been
both
married since
time and
2022,
options. Marty,
and so I had to put her in the game somewhere because that's
You
what you do.
always manage to talk
So
me
I
into
asked
these
her what
things.
she might want to do, and we
Fine.
talked about it. And
I'm only
I
bored and
pitched
will lay
to
out
the
the
team
plan.
that she would be the NPC that you go
We could use
to
your help
learn
as well,
about sky
Commander.
scales because my wife, growing up, she grew up in rural California on a farm, and so she used to be on a sheep farm, so she knows all about livestock and care and training of animals. So I thought this would be an appropriate place for her to be. I may have already mentioned that because she does appear in chapter 2, I think, somewhere out in the Beacon of Ages instance. And this was, again, this is
We think Dagda is
a
near the
way to kind of
Alt-Observatory.
put
Rion will watch for additional
her
areas and
here because she is
get to the
also
dust immediately.
the one who starts the collection. Let me see. I don't remember where that is, but oops. Sky scale, how to feed your sky scale. Yeah, so like oops, that's the wrong one. Anyway, there is there's a cool collection for earning the sky scale. If you already have it, it unlocks another collection where it unlocks a really awesome Cryptus themed sky scale skin. Since and there is still a mastery line, um, which I still haven't fully maxed out yet. That's what I'm working on right now. So I can use the all the updrafts and stuff that are in this map, which is really cool. advantage of these orbs. All right. So this was one of the things they mentioned before about open world story and the way that you have to be very cognizant because there is the meta going on, and technically Lear and Maban are on the other side of the map over here doing stuff. So he really is not supposed to be here, but this is one of those things you kind of have to live with a little bit of inconsistency because we need Maban to be here for this scene. So, yeah. It's not a perfect world where we could turn all the different things, all the different variables off. Hopefully you forgive us for that.
Anything I need to know about Dagda?
All right. So moving in to try to find Dagda, our Jotun wizard, Jotun wizard. I don't know. I still say Jotun. I think that's never going to change. I don't think I'll ever stop pronouncing it that way. I don't know why in Guild Wars 2 we decided on J, the hard J, Jotun sound, but we did. And so that's consistent with us, with our lore, but to me, I don't know. It sounds wrong, Jotun. We had a real interesting challenge with this instance because we have, for the most part, pretty solid combat AI. Our NPCs know how to fight each other. They do a pretty good job pathfinding. But there was a lot of challenges with this instance because they're great at pathfinding on terrain, but not all of this is terrain. A lot of this is props, these rocks and stuff. And so Zoja would often get stuck because there's kind of a switchback here, right? You come in and you go around and you like turn, and our AI, our enemy NPC AI, that doesn't care about things like walls all the time. Sometimes it's like, no, this thing's in range. I'm gonna go into combat mode, and it's like, well, but there's no line of sight. You can't actually attack this thing, but they wouldn't care, and so they would get stuck trying to fight each other through the wall. Yeah, and so I had to do some script shenanigans to fix Zoja, so she would not aggro on everything until you get around the corner and can see your enemies properly. It took quite a few tries before I got it right because trying to fight against a system that's already sort of hard-coded can be kind of a pain in the butt. But in the end, my changes worked, and Zoja does run ahead. Now this is the trade-off. The trade-off here is that normally I love to have NPCs wait for the player so they don't get too far ahead because of the things that I had to do with her intelligence to get her to not aggro everything through the walls. I kind of had to force her to just go. And so she goes and leaves you behind because she's excited to go see Dagda. Narratively, it does fit. This is one of those times where I could see her just being like gung-ho. And she doesn't go all the way. Like she goes to this spot, and then I can have her wait because there's no enemies in here at the moment. So yeah, Those are the kinds of trade-offs you have to make
Do you hear
with
that?
Yeah, I do.
enemy and AI scripting sometimes.
Feel the fury.
I'm gonna die here a lot, I can tell. Yeah. One thing I will say about the Cryptus, it was a tough thing to balance these characters, these creatures, because I am, I will say, I am not the best player. I do play our game. Um, on my Daredevil, I can do okay because that that build is I probably I got off one of our one of our many amazing vendors, either Snow Crows or I don't remember which one. But there are hardcore great players out there who are really really good at maximizing builds, and so I grabbed my Daredevil build from that, and I probably should play on that, except that she's already finished all the story, so it wouldn't be quite as fun. But yeah, so my Mesmer is she was my original main. Um, I now play the Daredevil almost exclusively, but I do play this character now and then. But this was my original main character, and I guess in my head she is my canon commander, because I think she is like, you can sort of see my style is all Aurene themed. She is the champion of Aurene in my game.
Zosha, help me.
This was a cool thing. We got this really awesome effect to show when NPCs are possessed by Cryptus, and in this case, Sari is Dagda's apprentice, and has been influenced by Cryptus possession, so she's going hostile on us. This was a fun thing to sort of tease the Dagda encounter, because Dagda is a more challenging encounter than a typical story mission. And so we wanted to kind of preview. We wanted players to have a preview of some of Dagda's attacks. And so Sari uses a lot of the same sort of attacks. That one where she throws out a bunch of, projectiles. So this is a thing that we often do. I know Raids does this a lot. Anytime we have an encounter that has complicated mechanics, we try to teach some of those mechanics up front ahead of the encounter, so that it's not a complete and total surprise, and you have a chance to say, "Oh, I just saw that. That's cool. Now I kind of know what to expect with that, right?" But to do it in a way that's a lot less risky, because Sari is not designed to be a hard encounter. She's just designed to be more of a narrative-based encounter that teaches you the mechanic and shows you what it's all about.
Another rift. That is where Dagda will be. I can feel her, and
And
you lead.
All right. So we go into the instance to confront Dagda.
She's just ahead.
The air is particularly dense in here. Which one of you latched on to the wizard's soul?
So this is one of those times too where I set this up originally, and then I handed it off to our Encounters team, and the Encounters team built this, because they built a lot of our encounters as story encounters, but then also as strike version encounters, so like really hard content. But they did that so that there was parity between the two different experiences, so that story players would get a little small taste of what a strike would feel like. But it's absolutely doable solo. It's definitely not pushing your skills to the max. You should still be able to get it even if you're not really good at the game like me. um, our story balancing difficulty for our story content is really a challenge because we have some really, really good players. But we can't tune the game for them because then it alienates players who aren't good, like myself. I want to be able to complete story on my own without needing to jump in with a whole party of 5 or to, requires me to like radically change my build and try something different. I know that that's a part of the game, right? Is to be able to do that. Um, but when it comes to story, I think we err on the side of being very generous towards players and let them play their own playstyle and how they want to do it. So we try to keep things.
Endurance running low.
Um, I don't know if I'd say easy, but on the easier side. But it's like I say, it's tough. The Cryptus in particular are a challenging enemy, regardless of where you are in your skill level. So I have a lot of respect for our encounters designers for creating enemies like the Cryptus that have a lot of variety to them, but also, as you can see, I've gone down several times already that push me in ways that challenge me in my skill set, in my skill level.
Not enough endurance.
But this mirrors the sort of phase shifts and changes that are encountered in the strike as well, which I wasn't paying attention to. Obviously, not doing a very good job. I'll have to retry from checkpoint. Yay. Oh god. I'm in the red. This was another challenge of this encounter. Designing this was how to deal with retry from checkpoint, because in some instances it's easier than others. This one, because you get enclosed into this ring and there's actual physical shield that prevents you from leaving, we have to spawn you back on the inside of the shield, which means you could be spawned in and get aggro right away, which can be really frustrating because if you're not doing well and you go down and you retry from checkpoint, chances are you're going to get stomped pretty quickly again. So I had to try to work out where would be the safest place to put you. I had to try to make sure that no enemies camped out there too long. So there's a tripwire around it that if they enter it, they'll try to back away so that they don't just can't spawn camp you, because that would suck again. But I will say this is one of those times where I don't know that I've gotten it perfect. There may be cases where some players have experienced a lot of frustration to try to beat this boss, because it does keep you in the combat arena and you can't necessarily go outside and get out of combat and change your build up and heal up and do the things that you might need to do to be back in the fight as easily. So, it's actually in some respects it's hard enough to keep the enemies in, because enemies don't always like the shield that keeps me in, that keeps me from leaving the arena. Our AI does not necessarily always look at those either. um, it will sometimes just ignore those boundaries and be like, I can go out there. And so we have to be able to ensure that enemy creatures don't leave the arena, because if they leave the arena during like a phase like this where your objective is to kill them, well, then you can't kill them because now they're unreachable. So, it's a very delicate balance sometimes of having to make sure that you trap the player without making it so egregiously bad. Oh, yeah, I forgot about this. I have to do this new mechanic. That's also part of the strike, I believe. This Mesmer build is not high on DPS either, as you can probably imagine and see. Um, I keep this build mostly because I spent a lot of time making this goddamn legendary, and I wanted to use it.
Keep pushing.
But yeah, there's probably a better greatsword build out there that has a higher DPS. I don't even remember what kind of gear this character is using. It might be Valkyrie. I don't know. I can't remember. I mean, this is a testament to how I play the game, right? Like, I don't pay attention at all to my build. I go with what I think looks good, but that can, um, and in that way, I mean, I do think that that's a net benefit to me as a designer, because as a encounters person, if I was aiming for somebody that, if I was a lot more skilled as a player, I think this stuff would just generally be hard for anybody. But because I make it something that I think I can do without losing so much that I get frustrated. Like, I don't mind going down. That's part of the game, right? Like, so, oops. So it's not about like, oh, I should never go down. Like, no, it's totally fine for the player to go down in story, because you're really not a lot of penalty for doing it. But I don't want it to be so frustrating that like you continually fail, and then you can't find a way to succeed, because that's not cool either. So with tenacity, with perseverance, you should be able to get any story encounter done. That is my goal as a story designer. Yay.
Time to do some real damage.
But it's an interesting thing, because you have to turn something like this over to another designer, and you have to trust that they are doing this the right way, right? And then I play it, I give them feedback, I say, hey, no, this is too hard for me, this doesn't work. And this fight did go through a couple of iterations where it was like really, really hard for me to do. And now I think it's in that sweet spot where it's like, it's obviously hard enough that I go down a few times, but it's not so impossible that I can't defeat it as an encounter. So,
Maybe you should check in on Frode and Yuno. Make sure they didn't get ambushed.
Understood.
okay. I haven't really talked anything at all about our characters here, but I really enjoy this moment here between Zoja and Dagda. This is our first time meeting Dagda. She is remarkably untrustworthy. Not untrustworthy. She is mistrusting. That's the word I'm looking for. She's mistrusting of us, and is not afraid to say so. Um, this is really great that we were able to get a female Jotun model for her. This is, I think, a first for us. We didn't have a female Jotun. We had to have concept art take a look at what that might look like. But we gave her, she has a lot of cosmic themed powers and skills. So we gave her this cool cosmic looking, it's kind of got the orrery in the middle of it on her great sword. So like we just loved that she is like the Wizard of Stars. It's like these, I don't know, this outfit that has the stars and stuff on it. It's just, I don't know. I really love when we can deliver on a theme like that
They've had to
with
make some
character
very
graphics.
difficult decisions. You can trust them. What if the elders
This was a
themselves
fun little
weren't
thing
safe?
too, where like as you walk away, we script this dialogue to play, and you can kind of
Would make the
sit here and
decisions
eavesdrop on them. I don't know. What do I account
It
for if you
wasn't
go
that
back?
simple.
I can't
And
remember.
those with good
No, I
intentions make
didn't.
ignorant decisions every day. Ugh.
That's a thing that in
Yes,
hindsight I wish
we'll talk about this later, okay?
I'd done, but yeah, can't win them all. All right, let's check on our grandpa and grandma.
You look like you've seen a ghost.
Or 10.
How's she faring?
Zoja's with her now. A little beat up, but managing. If I'm gonna be honest, we didn't have the warmest of introductions.
Unsurprising. Dagda is,
A mother to us all.
and fiercely protective of her brood. We'll get Dagda somewhere safe to recuperate until we can get back into the tower. We'll meet you at the Beacon of Ages. Catch your breath, and don't take it too hard. She'll see you.
You've replayed a story chapter. Great. Congratulations. All right. So that's the end of chapter 3 for Secrets of the Obscure. Um, so I think that's probably what we're going to call it for today because we're almost at an hour. That's actually a longer chapter than I thought. I thought that was, in my memory, I had kind of put that as a 30-minute chapter. Wow, that's an awesome Norn. Look at this. Holy cow. God, it's one of my favorite parts of continuing to work on Guild Wars 2 is seeing what players come up with and the way that they style themselves and participate in the community. And oh my God, there's so much good stuff. Anyway, so yes, so we will pick up with chapter 4 next time. Um, and hopefully these will come a little bit sooner than 6 months or whatever it was. I can't remember when it was the end of last year that I think that put in the last episode. So my hope is that these will come at least once a month, but we'll see how that goes. Anyway, hope you found this insightful. I enjoy doing these. I will continue to do so, and I will look for you next time. All right, thank you, and feel free to like and subscribe if it's something you think would be valuable to continue to watch. All right. Thank you. Bye.